Just waiting for the high sign. We're all good, and we have whoever we need remote. Pardon? The remote person, yeah, okay. We could start, but yeah. Good evening, everyone. I now call to order the Tuesday, January 10, 2023 meeting of the City of Sugar Land Planning and Zoning Commission. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, commissioners and those present in the room and watching in public, and Happy New Year to everyone. We will start with item 2, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up tonight for public comment?
No, sir, we did not.
All right, then we will move on to item 3A, consideration of and action on the minutes of the November 8, 2022 meeting. The minutes were in your packets. Anyone have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Landine. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I've got a second from Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? All right, please vote at this time. All right, that passes unanimously among the members present. Thank you, commissioners. We'll move on to item 4A, subdivision plat. Consideration of and action on the Alston Lakes final plat. We've got Lauren Fair, Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services. Good evening, Lauren. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Great, all yours.
All right. Get our plats open. We don't do this a lot, so. All right, so we are taking a look at the final plat for the Alston Lakes subdivision. This is the final plat. The preliminary plat was reviewed by the commission in August of last year and approved with conditions. This is an approximately 4.8 acre site zoned as standard single family R1, located here along Alston. This is Dairy Ashford, so a little west of Dairy Ashford in this black rectangle area here. So it is 16 lots with 2 reserves. It is dedicating new public right-of-way to access into the new subdivision from directly from Alston Road, right here, kind of in the middle. So this is the previous preliminary plat that the commission reviewed in August. So again, you could see the new road kind of coming in and circling around and then coming back out on Alston here. And the proposed final plat here, this is the detention pond in the rear of the property here. And again, 16 lots kind of right here, and then along the little cul-de-sac knuckles here. So the plat, as I mentioned, was reviewed, preliminary plat, excuse me, in August of 2022, was approved with a few conditions to correct the symbol for the water line easement along Alston Road, removing the incorrect acreage label on the Reserve A, the detention area on the plat, and then adding contour lines and spot elevations. So those were the conditions that the commission placed with their approval. And again, this is the reminder, since we do not do a ton of platting from the state law legislation since 2019. So the options are to approve with conditions, including the code references, which you all have in front of you, or disapprove with the explanation, again, relating to the code references. And again, that's the citations that we'll use for the conditions. And so with that, staff would recommend approval of the proposed final plat. We can answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. And commissioners, remember, you've got, courtesy of city staff and city attorney, the quick reference guide for platting in case you intend to offer any suggestions or recommendations. Let me start down here with our newest commissioner, Commissioner Patel. Any questions? All right. Commissioner Dawood?
Thank you. I have a quick question. In the description of the subdivision, it reads Fort County. Shouldn't it be Fort Bend?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was a mention that you will have these dates revised to 2023. This one reads September 2022.
Yes. And yes, we are going to change those dates. We will change those before they record them. Yes.
Okay. There is a small print, an exhibit actually, and I couldn't see it because it's not, in a large copy was not provided. In that exhibit, lot 16, I think, has a box on it. And that box overlaps the easement. Yeah.
Okay. The triangle.
And the one above that also overlaps the easement. One is a 5 by 20 aerial easement, which, you know, depends on how they design that structure, is not a concern. But the one parallel to that easement that abuts the property is actually an in-ground easement, and that box overlaps it. In fact, they actually took a, yeah. And they actually, what is that box representing, and why is there bearing given on the property line?
So the triangle, that's what you're,
Yeah, the triangle with a cross in
yeah,
it.
that's depicting the vehicular access, kind of help delineate and show that since it's an odd shaped lot.
Okay, so the rectangle with a cross in it is a vehicular access, or?
Oh, you're in the box exhibit. Oh, let me look at that. Yeah, that's not part of, yeah, so that's not part of the plat though,
Okay.
the final plat. It doesn't get recorded. This we put in here just for you all to reference. This is what you reviewed with the preliminary plat. But box exhibits don't get recorded. They're just mainly for visual purposes to show that the lot can fit,
All right.
or the house can fit on the lot.
All right,
Yeah.
and there are just two comments, the date and the
Yes,
county name.
yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Hart?
Yeah, I don't remember if I asked this the first time, but the detention area, the reserve, restricted reserve A, there's at the top of the cul-de-sac, it looks like there's property limits. Does restricted reserve A come down into the public right-of-way, or does the public right-of-way go into the, I guess there's a little cutout. What is that? Is that the restricted reserve? Is that public right-of-way?
Good evening. Robert Wilson, Engineering Department. So
There is a piece of right-of-way that kind of makes a right angle there to tie that Reserve A back to the right-of-way. They're going to put a overflow for the 100-year
For the 100-year,
event
okay.
into that.
That's what I thought. But it's just right away.
That's correct.
Okay. That's my only question.
Commissioner Brown?
Good evening, Happy New Year. In looking at the state law essentials for plating, one of the items it calls out is final plats must be prepared in a manner for recordation, which includes notarized signature of owners. And typically, I've seen stamped plats. Is that something we don't require? Or is that something you get after the fact?
After, right. So when we get this prepared and they bring us back a copy that has all of your conditions from the meeting, then they will take it, give it to the owners, they'll sign and give us the Mylars with the stamps, the actual plat Mylars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So ahead, sir. Okay. Commissioner Preet?
I'm good, Chairman.
Commissioner Landine? All right. So on the page, let's see what this is. Page 1 of 2 on the plat. On the legal description, so in the first line where there is the description of, or the listing of square feet, it says 209,472.28 square feet. But if you go down to the last paragraph, it just says 209,472 without the .28. Can we fix that, please? All right. And then, let's see, if we consider the first paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in between, I guess, paragraphs 5 and 6, do you see where there's that stray, THENCF? I think it's events that doesn't belong there. Can we excise that, please? And then on the last paragraph there, I just noticed that for the references to Ashford Lake, in the earlier paragraph, it says Block 1 of Ashford Lakes, Section 1, and here it just says Block 1 Ashford Lakes. You might want to make those consistent as well. And then on the notes, on note 8, all landscaping and structures, including fences at intersections, shall conform to the city of Sugar Land and, is that a term of art, AASHTO, site distance
ASHTO.
requirements?
Yeah.
All right, do we need to include that in the legend then?
No, we have never in the past.
Okay, that's fine. And then on number 12, the note states that Alston Lakes lies within unshaded Zone X as per flood insurance rate map number 48157C 0165L dated 4/2/2014. Is that the most recent flood insurance rate map?
That is, FEMA does updates to the D firms about every 10 years, so.
Okay, so even though they've changed some of the things, that map is still the
Correct.
current edition of the map. All right,
Yes, sir.
fantastic. And then I think we've already established this, Commissioner DeWood, on page 2, all the 2022 dates will be changed to 2023. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then just a question about the statement from the registered professional land surveyor. So the last sentence says, these corners, actually the last two say, the interior corners of this subdivision were not set at the time this plat was signed and sealed by me. These corners are expected to be set after construction of the public infrastructure and final grading within the subdivision. Is that normal? Like, what does that even mean?
So when they do the construction of the public infrastructure, they will set the property pins for each individual lot rather than setting them at this time. That is normal for these constructions where they're subdividing land.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so, any other questions? Okay, I will then make a motion that we recommend approval. Let me get the language out here. I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the final, let me start over. I'll try that again. I'm going to make a motion that we make a recommendation of approval to City Council for the final plat for Alston Lakes with the following conditions.
It's not to city council, though.
What's that?
You're not making recommendation to council. You guys are deciding.
Oh,
You
it's a
said,
plat.
yeah,
My
that's okay.
bad. Well, let me, maybe the fifth time is the charm. Okay. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the final plat for Alston Lakes with the following conditions. One, that the signatures be updated to reflect the year 2023, and that one is going to be pursuant to the Development Application Handbook, Section 5, Graphic Requirements for Final Plat, and Development Code, Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-17. That's number one. Number two, that the discussed changes to the legal description and notes be made for the legal description and notes. For the master notes, that would be the Development App Handbook, Section 5, Graphic Requirements for Final Plat, and Development Code, Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-17. Also, legibility, which is Development App Handbook, Section 5, Graphic Requirements for Final Plat, and Development Code, Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-17, and also key identifier information, which are the same sections. Section 5, Graphic Requirements for Final Plat from the Handbook, and Development Code, Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-17. All right, I've got a motion by myself, and I've got a second by Commissioner Hart. Any further discussion? All right, go please vote at this time. All right, that passes unanimously among the commissioners present. Thanks very much. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, commissioners. Next item up for bids is item 5, facts, findings, and recommendation. Consideration of and action on a recommendation of the Tarrington Office Park Final Development Plan to members of the City Council. Lauren, pleasure to see you again. It's been too long. Take it away.
Okay. Now we'll pivot over to the final development plan. So we are here for consideration of an action on the Tarrington Office Park. So as a reminder, we are located in Telfair with this 6.2 acre property along Telfair Avenue, Coatesworth, and Tarrington here. This is from the Telfair General Land Plan, just showing that it's located in our the commercial areas that are to be zoned as PD ordinances in the General Land Plan. So again, about 6.2 acres located west of Tarrington, south of Telfair Avenue, and eventually kind of behind the Sprouts Shopping Center. It does consist of several low-scale, one-story buildings with surface parking. Use list focuses still on professional offices with some limited services, such as medical or banking, restaurant, and then some smaller scale retail as well. Drive-through lanes are also still prohibited in the FDP. So this is the site layout. Fundamentally the same in terms of the location of the buildings that the commission saw last time. The site layout plan here does detail out the parking spaces a little bit more. Now, that was something that we discussed at the last meeting. But the building locations are fundamentally the same on that. So again, the access is still the same from Tarrington and from Coatesworth, and no access here on the back from Telfair or from Addison Avenue. These two here are the updated landscape exhibit shown on my left, and the pedestrian, updated pedestrian exhibit as well. So the landscaping exhibit shows a little bit more detail. We talked some about showing the parking lot trees. So the parking lot trees have been labeled within the site. And then a little more detail here on the pedestrian exhibit in terms of relocating that pedestrian plaza that was discussed during the public hearing, as well as denoting the locations of the bike parking as well. But again, overall, the existing sidewalk surrounding the site and then the proposed walkways internally through the parking lot for internal circulation and then to access the sidewalks as well. The building elevations, nothing fundamentally changed on those since the public hearing. They are still one story, low scale design here in these renderings. And these just kind of provide some perspective. So coming in kind of from the internal driveway and then two differing exterior views of the buildings. So the commission held their public hearing in October of 2022. Mentioned a few of the things we discussed during that meeting, the permitted land use list in terms of some of the different uses, but also a question on why there were some size limitations on a few of them, but not on all of them, and direction for staff and the applicant to take a look at that. Discussion on the pedestrian circulation, internal to the site, as well as external in terms of where the location of the Ped Plaza was, how it could provide a little more connectivity to the adjacent developments. Building elevation details, previously they had said tentative design on it, so we received direction to go back and make a determination on removing those or not. And then a discussion on landscaping, the parking lot trees, which we took a look at, that are now provided on the landscape plan, and then some discussion on screening of the dumpster and the utility equipment as well. And then just a few clerical edits to the exhibits and some labeling throughout the exhibits. And then some of the things that were done since the public hearing meeting. So all size restrictions have now been removed from the land use list. The applicants also removed animal services from the use list. I know that came up as a point of discussion at the last meeting. The pedestrian plaza was relocated to be a little bit closer to Tarrington Avenue in an effort to, well, it's a little bit closer to Tarrington, but also internal to those internal buildings as well, in an effort to provide some, encourage folks internally to use it in the buildings, users of the buildings, and then as well as connecting it outwardly to the sidewalk, public sidewalk. The tentative design was removed from the elevation exhibits. Landscaping plan was revised to add the parking lot trees and show a little more detail there, as well as detailing out the parking space locations. And then again, some of those kind of labeling edits were also taken care of. So with that, our recommendation is of approval to the mayor and city council. Staff supports that recommendation on this proposed rezoning. So we're happy to discuss. And the applicant is also still here again in case you have any questions. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Lauren. Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Patel? Commissioner Dawood?
Thank you. Just observation. 2 exhibits were provided, B2 and B6. B6 is about the bike lane or pedestrian crosswalk as it connects to the thoroughfare. The only thing is that between B2 and B6, that connection is not shown on B2 along Coatsworth. And you know, one
I
at the
see.
corner at the intersection between Darrington and Coatsworth.
Yes,
So
I see where you're talking.
to be consistent, I would encourage that whatever those bike paths are and pedestrian accesses are, they should be, you know, consistent between these exhibits. And just a general observation that pedestrian plaza has been relocated, but it has been relocated right across the dumpster. It's just an observation, nothing more. I do still feel that for 12 buildings, and I'm approximating about 50,000 square feet the way it's shown, if it is single story, 2 dumpsters probably will not be enough. But it's just an observation, nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. One question that I had was, I think when we originally saw this, we talked about this trying to be more connected to the other areas that are more off of Tarrington, back in the back of Sprouts. And really, the only connectivity is over here at the corner of Cogsworth and Tarrington, correct?
Let me get back.
To get across. So
Okay, go
So
ahead.
is there is there anything, because I know right there, if that crosswalk's there, there's not sidewalk there to get across. There's a restaurant right there in that corner, on the other side of
Right, there's a
Tarrington.
restaurant here.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think like if the entry points, like from these drives that we have off at Tarrington, they just go into the back of the buildings. Not, there's no way to get to the front of the buildings where Sprouts out, other than if you go all the way around down Telfair, or if you cross there, but then you're still going to have to walk down, I guess, the street to get into the parking lot, because it's a little bit further down Tarrington from that corner right there.
Right, so this goes kind of into the back of, I believe that is. the
There's a back,
Sprouts
it
there.
goes into the back of buildings.
Right, and same with this one. Now,
Yeah.
the difference is that this restaurant has a outdoor area that connects to the back of this sidewalk here. So it is, I mean, you don't have to necessarily walk all the way around there. I mean, you can hop right onto that kind of outdoor plaza area. It's right, that was our thought when kind of looking at this and talking with the applicant.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but if
Yeah.
I drove it today, and sort
Sure.
of where that entrance is, it looks like it just goes into the drive or the back of the building.
Yeah,
So it
and-
is up further.
And there's no, I mean, you are right. It is set back really far from the street. I mean, because it's a truck circulating route for deliveries, and that's how it was designed. So we are sort of up against the realities of how the site was designed there. And so it does cross here, but that is the last kind of piece there, is that Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the plaza, they expanded their outdoor dining in their plaza area, and the sidewalking comes back, but I mean, no, I mean, the reality is it's a truck corridor for deliveries to the
So
buildings.
really, this is being built, and it's not really something that it's going to be walkable out to other areas. It's going to be more encompassing in of itself, more than likely.
And that was also, I think, part of our discussion last time was
Right.
how to make it encouraging and a little
make
more
it.
inviting internally, because previously it was either down here in this corner or this corner, and so it didn't seem as maybe internal. So we were kind of contending with both factors there
Okay.
on that.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
sort of remembered we talked about it actually trying to connect
Yeah.
back into that restaurant in the Sprouts.
Yeah, and then again, when you look at it, and you're right, and I'm very familiar with all that too. Yeah, it's a very wide.
Well, eventually,
Truck delivery
I
route.
know it's not a part of this development, but if there were a sidewalk there, you could walk into that parking lot at least where that restaurant's at to get to, but
Sure.
I understand. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
There are, but not.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hart?
Sorry, I wasn't here for the preliminary, so excuse me if I ask a couple of questions, it might have been answered, but, so on the building facades, the exhibit, B7 appears to show brick, but then when you look at the elevation, exhibit B8 and B9, or B8, it looks like it shows stone. And I did a quick look around Telfair, and to my knowledge, every building in Telfair has brick on the facade. I looked at every commercial building along University
In
and
kind
back
of
in
that
this
core,
complex.
in kind of that core area, but if you go out to like Brisbane and the Acura dealership, the Acura has a lot of brick, but a
Yeah,
lot of
they all
those
have some
buildings-
form of brick on their exterior, on their facade. That I could be wrong,
I think a
but
lot
let's
of-
say
yeah.
the
Well,
absolute majority of them
Sure,
do, and
sure.
there's a trend there.
Sure.
So did the commission say that this natural stone fit with the the Telfair commercial look that is consistent throughout Telfair? Because everything in Telfair is brick.
Well, what about,
I mean, it really is. The bridges are brick, the signs are brick, the facades are brick, and now we have a natural stone facade building that doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the development. So I don't know if that came up before in the commission or not, but, I mean, to me, it really doesn't fit in with the rest of the buildings.
may I tag along on that and ask this question? It might be helpful. So don't the building regulations require that? Under G, let me orient myself to this document here. This is Exhibit B.
Sure.
G2 says building facade finishes. Primary finish means an exterior finish consisting of brick, stone, natural cast, or cultured, textured, and glass. So don't the regulations require it?
That means it can be a combination of those. So it doesn't,
Okay, well then to ask
Well,
Commissioner
but,
Hart's
okay.
question, where's the brick part of that combination?
but it doesn't have to. I mean, it could be just stone and glass.
Well,
It's not written in that way.
It could be, but, honestly, we're not rubber stampers. It's my interpretation. I'll just express my opinion that this doesn't fit with the rest of the structures throughout Telfair. Whether it's allowed or not, that's just my comment, is to me, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the structures. I'm not saying it's not a pretty front, it just doesn't fit with the motif. And along those lines, the sign that's aluminum, I kind of looked around again, and all of the Telfair signs that I saw were brick surrounded and with a stone topping. Maybe I missed one, but again, just saying that's what I saw.
Speak? Yeah, Telfair is a southern look. And I
No, go ahead.
remember when Acura was being built, that brick thing was a big deal.
Okay, so anyone want to address Commissioner Hart's concerns?
Do you mind if the applicant?
I would love it.
Okay.
Just please introduce yourself again for the record. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. I'm Rodrigo Mendoza. I'm representing the owner, and we are the architect for the development. The design does include brick. It's the second plane that you see behind, where there is this lighter stone volume with the high window on top. There's a second wall behind that, and that's a really light brick, linear brick.
So is it a red brick?
It's not a red brick, but it's a brick. It's a linear brick. It's going to be within the shades of gray.
So Telfair uses red brick.
Yep.
So I'll
That's
ask
all
the
I can say.
question. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the logical follow-up there is, so then why is, if there's an understanding that the majority of the brick in Telfair is red, are you proposing the brick here not be red?
Okay. As you mentioned, the brick and Telfair, it's red, or it's in a reddish stone. But the regulations does not ask for that specific color. They do ask for masonry and brick requirements on the exterior facades and the exterior buildings itself. And there's actually some materials that are not allowed. There's not a specific mention of the color. We try to allude to the material in the design. We're trying to give a more contemporary look to the development that we are proposing. So that's why we abstract the red color from it and just trying to use the brick into the design in a simpler and more abstract form, which would be a lighter color of either gray or white.
Is that beneficial to, I mean, I'm trying to figure out why you deviated
And
from
then
the
we're
norm
trying
of,
as well, I'm sorry.
if there's a reason other than, you know, and I don't take this in the wrong way, other than the architect wanted to
No.
put their influence in the structure.
Mhm.
Is there any other reason? I mean, is it to try to attract different clients? Is it I mean, there needs to be, in my mind, there needs to be some advantage that this design gets you over the rest of Telfair for me to be not concerned that, you know, you're doing something different, not to just do something different.
Yes, and we were trying to look at the buildings that are right across our site. There's a car dealership, and there is another, I believe it's a medical use building that has a tent or a aesthetic a little bit more contemporary. We're trying to grab some of those aesthetics and incorporate it into our development.
But they have red brick too, though, I think. Yeah. They still have red brick.
The shopping center does, but then the car dealership and the medical building, they have,
They still have red brick. I'm pretty sure I looked at all of those.
oh, yep. Oh,
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could be wrong.
It may-
You
yeah.
live there, but I'm pretty sure it's red.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is you all have to make a decision on what your preference is. This is a preference kind of discussion here because I don't have anything from a code standpoint or a regulation standpoint. The city doesn't have any regulations that require red brick. I can assure you that the majority of those 3-story buildings on Brisbane do not have red brick. I can 100% assure you of that. So I see several of you shaking your heads. So that's the discussion, that's the decision that the commission has to make, is if you want to make a preference choice to have them, force them to have red brick or not. But I can't provide any supporting
Oh,
city
I
documentation.
understand. That's,
Yeah,
I'm just trying
I
to drill
wanna
down.
Put that out there because
Right.
we're just kind of,
Just trying to drill down why it was there and that there was a,
it sounds like that's the preference of the developer and the owner from my discussions with him.
Okay, and I would just add to that, and I accept that answer. I would add to that, staff is making a recommendation of approval for this, right?
Sure.
And so my question, and I appreciate the gentleman speaking on behalf of the applicant,
Yeah.
is it staff's judgment that what's being proposed here is in fact consistent with the general theme of development in the surrounding area?
I think if we're looking at precedent, there are several buildings on Brisbane, like I mentioned, and that's a PD that went through the same process. It's in Telfair. And they have the similar requirements about the primary can be this, or this. But it doesn't regulate color. And so, you know, the
Okay.
staff reviewed those and
Okay.
approved them. So,
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. Commissioner Hart, anything further?
yeah, and again, apologize for asking again. Are the existing
Don't
trees,
Well, you don't need to apologize.
Yeah.
You're doing
Okay.
great.
are the existing trees going to remain in place around the site with the berm? Or is that in the vegetation barrier?
along Telfair? Or-
It's all around the site.
No, there's some definitely on Telfair. My assumption would be yes. I'm trying to take a look. I believe, yes? Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, good. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's, yeah. And then I think I just had one more question about the use list. If I can find it. Oh, here it is. Permanent makeup, is that a tattoo parlor?
So the state licensed them in a similar way, but we don't classify them like that in our land use code. They are more like your salon type place.
Okay, is it a tattoo parlor? Can they put a
So
tattoo
we do
parlor
not
in?
classify it as a tattoo parlor. A tattoo parlor is a separate land use in our land use
Oh, it is,
matrix.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a tattoo parlor?
It is not per the city's land use matrix. The state, the way they do their health licensing is different than the way our zoning code is. So our zoning code does not allow for a regular tattoo parlor. like you would think of. Yeah. We can provide you information on that if you want. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Good evening, and thank you. I just want to start off, I drove it too, and I want to echo Commissioner Hart's concern on the color.
Sure.
It's not one building, it's 12. This isn't, we're going to put another little building over here. It's a little bit different. It's something in, it's just not going to blend as well as you would hope it would in that area. My preference is one vote here would be that color is more reflective of the overall development in Telfair. My second comment is on the dumpsters, and I always seem to catch the dumpster stuff. They're like, leave dumpsters to Commissioner Brown. When you look at this in this drawing, the doors, when they're open on this dumpster enclosure, overlap the sidewalk. Those doors are always going to be left open. There needs to be a setback there that when those doors are open, they're not in the way of the sidewalk. And then to echo Farina's comments, they need to be sized properly. Again, this is 12 buildings. That enclosure needs to be big enough, and I hope the developer does a calculation of some sort to figure out what the daily trash volume is going to be, so those are sized properly. And then my last comment is in regards to the sign exhibit under Exhibit H. Again, it's the only one that's not brick out in the area. I would encourage you to look at that. But it calls for a 60 square foot maximum effective area. And then below it in the figure, it calls for 150 square feet. So I'm sure that Code of Ordinances will probably set out maximum square footage there, but it needs to be consistent and needs to be in the drawings there. It's probably 60 aside for a total of 120, but we need to pick up on that. Other than that, I'm glad to see y'all developing the property. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Parikh?
Yeah, just one thing. I echo Commissioner Brown's sentiment on the setback for the dumpster. It looks like that's exactly what it's going to happen. The door is going to be open and it's going to be on that sidewalk. So I echo your comment on that. One thing that I was just curious, and I didn't see it in here, did this warrant a traffic impact analysis? And if so, was there any material results you can share for the outcomes?
So there is a concurred TIA that was completed with this development. There's no improvements that are
No issues.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. That was it for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Landine?
Yeah, one question and then a comment. So question is just on, what is it, exhibit? Can you just tell me, so the exhibit there on the left-hand side of the screen, on the kind of top portion, there looks like there's a pad in the grass there
Here?
above the, no, go down to the standalone single building. And then immediately up, Lauren? Yep, right there.
Yes.
I'm just curious what that is.
So
It's covered up.
it's almost like it's,
Is that what that is, a bicycle?
yeah, it's,
No, it's,
yeah.
you're right.
it's just not colored.
Commissioner Smith, that's exactly right. So, yep,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks.
that's cool. Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to see.
Okay. So that was just my curiosity question. Comments, and I think it's more in the tone of appreciation, Lauren. One, I really appreciate the inclusion of the discussion and direction recap in the staff notes. Certainly helpful for this discussion, for us to be able to recall the things that were brought forward by the commission at that time. And then also appreciation to the applicant and then the work between applicant and staff to get to what became 6 material revisions to the project. And so I think it's a good reflection of the type of work that we should be doing, because it's resulting in a better development. So I think that's worth pointing out to everybody. And then the final point on the discussion about the color, I do think that it is, while there may be some prevailing design aesthetic in different parts of the Telfair development. I don't think there's any question that some of the buildings along Brisbane and other portions there are certainly of the more modern style that's reflected in this development. So I, for one, don't have any issue with what's being proposed. So anyway, Lauren, thank you again to you and the applicant for making the changes and being responsive to the concerns of the commission. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike, I think I only have one or two questions. The first question, is the applicant willing to consider the I don't want to say the replacement, but making adjustments to the location of the dumpster pursuant to Commissioner Brown's comments to get it off the sidewalk if the doors are open?
Yes, I made a note of that on the plan to work with them on having them not encroach into that ped path.
Okay. And then I think I heard you say, Lauren, there's no formula for what an appropriate dumpster requirement is based on square footage or some other metric that anyone knows about?
So, to my knowledge, and I haven't read it or I won't pretend to be an expert, the Republic, our trash provider, does have size requirements based on the development itself. And
Do we know what the metric is? Is it based on square footage? Is it based on?
I don't want to misspeak on what it
Okay.
is unless I don't think anybody here knows. So
Based
yeah,
on
we can find out.
square footage and type of tenancy.
Okay,
and
yeah,
they
I
can
knew it
help
was
you
the
with
type of business, but I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
it was the size versus,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's fair to assume that city staff or the applicant will consider whatever Republic says is appropriate
Right,
for
yeah,
that property and we'll do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And I would say on the color thing, I will echo Commissioner Landine's comments about that and also the sense of gratitude to city staff and for the applicant for addressing the commission's prior comments. I guess my question is, since what I'm hearing is there's nothing in ordinance or code that requires a particular color. Once we approve this, there's not a color requirement, but that's something that the applicant can then consider along with staff and
Right, because the building regulations in here don't have a color requirement. And remember, the PDs are the only way. You know, the state law doesn't allow cities to regulate building finishes anymore. So,
okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Color requirement considered, the red, was it considered? Because Telfair Avenue is the main street where Tarrington neighbors will come out and this is the building they will see. Was that talked about at all? Because, you know, even we're building an addition to the Telfair Hall and it's going to be red brick. So was that talked about?
I don't think that we had the conversation with the developer on that, not to my recollection, no.
Okay, would they consider that?
Well, the developer will consider brick, different brick color options and do the studies to see through renderings what's the best color scheme that can as well be a good being good for the development, but as well to tie with the community. And as well as several of you mentioned the dumpster early on, as well, we're gonna revisit and reconsider the enlargement of the space and allocating it to accommodate for the sidewalk and not being an impediment to it. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go for it. That won't come back before us. All right, any further discussion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Tarrington Office Park Final Development Plan to members of City Council.
And based on the representations of staff and the applicant, I will second it. Any further discussion? All right, if you'll please vote at this time.
I mean, I vote no.
All right. That motion then passes by a vote of 6-2. Thank you very much, commissioners, staff, and the applicant. I'm going to move on to the next item agenda, which I believe are city staff reports. Oh, I'm sorry. Man, I just get, every time I try to do
you didn't do
something,
anything
someone's
wrong.
reining me in.
I think we just wanted to just follow up with Commissioner Hart and Commissioner Patel on their reason for voting no.
Well, not right now, right? You can visit
No,
with them.
citing just,
Oh,
yeah, no, not a dialogue, just
not
the
on the
citing
record.
of what.
Yeah, you can talk to them all you want. That's great. Okay, so.
Just
before-
even it's just a quick cite of, you know, a reason, that's all.
All right, so on the agenda, next is item 6, city staff reports. Before we do those reports, I would like to have invoke a Commissioner Chairman's privilege here and say that as many of you may know, Vice Chairman Simeon has tendered his resignation from P&Z. He and his wife are going to be moving out of the area relatively soon. All of us on the current commission have served with him, and I've had the pleasure of serving with him for several years. So on behalf of the commission and personally, I would like to extend my gratitude to Vice Chairman Simeon for all of his excellent work on the commission over the years and for his service to the city of Sugar Land. So on behalf of this commission, Dan, thank you very much for your service. All right, next item, do we have city staff report? Oh, I'm sorry. Commission, yeah, well, I'm just going to get every item wrong tonight. Why not? I said staff reports, but do we have any liaison reports? 6A is actually liaison reports. Do we have any reports from the November 15th or either the December or the January 2023 city council meeting? Just like I drew it up. Okay.
Well, I have one for January.
Oh, go for it, please.
But I don't know who had the other one. So it was just actually fairly recent. They had a consent agenda, but I think one of the key things that will impact us is that there was an approval from the city council for a reimbursement agreement. So they will go into an agreement between the city of Sugar Land and the Sugar Land Development Corporation and Puma Development Incorporated. And this is with associated cost of the preservation and redevelopment of the Imperial Char House. So there's sort of a staggered amount of money that will be put into this. So I think that was very positive in getting that development going forward. And probably more input will come on our 24th meeting workshop with City Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Any other liaison reports from November or December? All right, we're going to look up and see who had those and figure out what to do about that. Okay, item 6B, city staff report.
So we do have another regularly scheduled P&Z meeting on the 26th. So Thursday, January 26th, we do have a large agenda. We have 4 public hearings and a plat extension request. Several of those public hearings were originally scheduled for December, so they're just kind of cycling back through since we didn't have a December meeting. So we will have several items on the January 26th. As Commissioner Smith mentioned, the Imperial Char House preservation. We are planning, I know we polled you all for your availability on January 24th, Tuesday, for a joint workshop with City Council on that item. We are still planning to hold that. And then you all will see that come before you in February and then move through the process rather quickly on that zoning item. So more to come on the 24th, on January 24th on that for y'all. Yes.
I just had a question unrelated to that.
The 26th regular start time? You've
Yes,
been given
because
the number of
we-
items on the agenda?
Yeah, we advertised, the public hearings are advertised for 6:30.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Snacks?
I'm sorry.
Snacks? We'll take a break.
Hey, yeah,
Hey, Warren,
we can move quickly.
total curiosity here, as I was sitting in the new Chick-fil-A drive-through, can you inform us, that obviously has been built. We never saw any circulation or any sort of, I'm just curious, that's just developed by right?
Hold up, Tyler.
Oh, I know.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Why don't you
I will catch you after.
Why don't you
How's
direct your
that?
question directly to staff, and if we have an opportunity to discuss that, we'd probably love to hear the answer. Thank you. All right, any other business?
No, we'll see you that last week of January.
All right,
Second to last week.
commissioners,
Motion to adjourn.
I've got a
Second.
contemptuous motion to adjourn from Commissioner Landine. Is there a second? I've got a second from Commissioner Brown. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Can't ask a general curiosity.
No, I know. Not on the agenda. Hey, sign up for public comment.